Hello, and welcome to the Rossaround Backstage podcast, talking with artists, technicians, musicians, producers, directors, and all the interesting and talented people that make it all happen for you. Hi, everybody. This is Ross Pallone with the Rossaround Backstage podcast, and I'm on the road today with my good friend, Joe Haramut, and he is a backline tech for the Chris Isaak Band. He takes care of the bass and keyboard setup, and he is a musician, he's a singer, he's a songwriter, he's a backline tech, as I mentioned, and he has a couple of bands that he plays with. One is called Sketchy Becky. He plays all the instruments and sings and writes with that band. He also is involved with another band called Band, B-A-N-N-E-D, from Japan, and he plays drums with that band. He also plays piano, guitar, and bass. He is a graduate of the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences in Arizona, which puts out some pretty great graduates, and they really do a good job of teaching people about the music industry. So I'm going to ask Joe, hey Joe, how did you get into this business, and what's going on with you?
Well, I guess we start from the beginning.
Start from the beginning.
It all started in Massachusetts, Springfield, Massachusetts. I grew up there, and my dad was always into music. He played drums. So when I was 6, he bought a drum set for the family. And my mom didn't mind. My mom could sing, and she always loved music. And so we had a drum set, and I automatically took to it, and we kind of bonded over that. And in school, middle school, high school, did jazz band, drumline, concert band. I was a band nerd, like all around.
Was your dad a professional musician?
No.
He just enjoyed it as a hobby.
Yeah, he enjoyed it. Once he started a family, he kind of stopped. But when we got a little older and the drums were back in the house, he took on it again and played a little bit, but never professionally. And then graduated high school. I actually graduated high school in Florida. When I was 10, I moved from Massachusetts to Florida. So that's where I finished schooling. And originally I wanted to go to Berklee College of Music in Boston and become a drummer and do the whole performing thing. But that was pretty expensive, and none of us could afford it. So I started looking into recording schools because in high school I bought a recording software called Magix Studio or something like that from Best Buy. And I started messing around with it because I wanted something to play drums to and have some original music. So I started recording. A lot of kids were going to Full Sail in Orlando, and that was like a 3-year school or 2-year school. I don't know, but you got a degree when you graduated. And I also researched the school in Arizona, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, and that was like a fast track, like 9 or 10 months. You were in school, you got certifications, no degree, and it was fairly cheaper than Full Sail. And there was this mandatory internship program. So they had ties all around the country, and you could decide whether you want to go to New York, Nashville, LA, or wherever you wanted to go, and they could put you in a studio or some establishment, and you can do your internship hours. And you had to do so many internship hours to graduate. So I decided to go to LA. I always just wanted to go out west. Interned at NRG, this recording studio in North Hollywood. Finished my hours, and then got hired on as a runner for a while. I think it was about a year or so I worked there, and then they laid me off after a year. And then I got like a regular 9-to-5 flipping burgers.
Why do you think they laid you off? Was it because they just didn't have enough business and they couldn't keep everybody on?
Yeah, I guess so. It was pretty slow. I mean, I had to work a part-time job while working there as well for that whole year. It definitely wasn't like a 40-hour, a week job or anything.
Oh, okay. So it was like a part-time job.
Yeah, I probably worked 15, 20 hours the whole year I was there. A week,
Yeah.
So then I probably worked regular 9-to-5 for a few months, and then my roommate was working with Robin Thicke as the playback and drum tech. Their guitar tech bailed on towards the end of the tour back in 2014, and they gave me a call. And then maybe like a couple weeks later, I was on the road with him, and it spent 3+ years with that camp. And then that turned into working with Chris Isaak.
What were you doing with Robin Thicke? Were you a guitar tech?
Yeah, I was guitar teching, bass teching, keyboard teching, and piano tech, yeah. Mm-hmm. So like the full back line, except for the drums.
Right, they had another guy to do that.
Yeah. And I caught the end of the tour, and then it was really for 3 years like a bunch of one-offs. So it was a bunch of rental gear, not their own gear and stuff. We show up at different casinos or theaters or jazz festivals and stuff, and just set up, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun. We've been to a lot of places. I've been out of the country a bunch of times, and the people there, that whole camp's real friendly, real nice people, the band and the crew.
So you're mostly flying somewhere, doing a gig, and then just flying home, or maybe go out and do 2 or 3 gigs at a time?
Yeah. It was like that. Which was fine. You know, I was paying my bills that way. You know, twice a month we'd have a gig, so I'd work 6 days or something, and then spend the rest of the time playing music around town. Definitely, after that died down, I was looking for work, and then Doug Casper gave me a call, and that was like one of the best things.
And how did Doug find you?
Bobnet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bobnet.
So there's a success story for Bobnet.
Yeah, shout out to Bobnet. Thanks, Bobnet. I was a member on there for a few years, and then I reached out to him, and maybe 7 months after I reached out on his classifieds ad or whatever, he reached back to me, and I totally forgot that I reached out to him. I had to look it up and trace my emails back and realize, I found this job on Bobnet.
Now, when you saw the job on Bobnet, was there any other communication between the time that you applied with Doug and the time that they actually called you to come out and do it?
Well, when he called me, he kind of gave me like the skinny on the job, asked, if I've done this before, if I think I could handle it. And then before the first gig, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks before their first gig that I would go shadow John Bunker, who gave me this job. I replaced him. He put me in contact with Jan, and Jan gave me a call and kind of gave me the skinny on it. Met him at the warehouse and loaded up, and then we did a show and flew out to San Francisco from L.A.
Right. That was the first time I met you.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And just kind of watched how it all went down and shadowed John. And then after that, they asked, you think you could go on the road with us this summer? And I said, hell yeah, I'll go on the road.
Yeah.
Sounds like fun.
Yeah, pretty cool gig, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's been fun. I love this stuff, man. Other than actually performing and stuff, this is the funnest job you could possibly have. I love the people, the music, and just traveling, going to all these places. We're in North Carolina today.
Right. We've been going all over the place, yeah.
It's a fun job, man. I guess, kids from my school would say that's, I'm a success story, I suppose. You graduate and you hope to find a job in the music industry and keep a job. And I've only been doing it since 2011, 2012, and it's been a struggle. I've had to find regular jobs in between, but you just got to keep consistently applying yourself and putting the word out, and things will come around,
Yeah. You're lucky because you specifically take care of Scott Plunkett and Rolly Sally, who are both really sweet, nice guys. Really nice guys.
It's two of the nicest guys I know. Because before you meet people and stuff, I never want to research bands or anything like that and read things about them, because I like to just take things as your personal experience, with individuals, because there's just a lot of shit out there on social media and things that people just say and put out in the atmosphere that aren't possibly true,
Right. Well, I don't know who would say anything bad about those two guys.
No, yeah, exactly.
But but there's always that possibility.
But they're such great musicians, and they've been doing this for so long. They played with these very talented people, and just in my mind, I don't know. I just wouldn't expect them to be so friendly and open since day one. They were like, "Hey, man, do you play music? What music do you play? You play instruments?" And they were just so personable and friendly. Yeah, they're awesome, and they're easy to take care of, man. There's just they have no ego, and they're very humble musicians and individuals, and they're cool.
Yeah, and I understand that they're even like Scott Plunkett. He's offered to play on some of your recordings, right?
That's insane. Yeah,
so you're getting what you'd normally have to pay some
Yeah.
exorbitant amount of money to get a musician of that quality to play on your record, and here he's offering it to you. It's pretty cool.
That is pretty cool. That's I didn't know what to say really at first. I was like, is this a joke, man? Like,
Yeah, right.
Are you kidding? Because he's such a great keys player, man. I mean, sometimes I like zone out during the show and I just watch him do his thing and I forget that, I'm supposed to be paying attention, but he caught me in a trance, with him playing. And, they're great.
Cool. We're all grateful to have you. You've been a real nice addition to the band or to the crew.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, it's been great, and I like rubbing shoulders with the younger guys. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, everybody's my parents' age in this camp, and that's what's cool about the music business, though. Is I might be only 27, and you guys are older, but everybody's like young at heart, and I think it's because in one way or another we're all about the music. Like the music is what brought us to this job and doing this thing, and a lot of people don't like their jobs, and it stresses them out, but I feel like everybody here like wants to be here and they love it, and that's how I feel, man. And I definitely lucked out with a cool group of guys and girls with this camp, because that doesn't always happen either. But
right, yeah, we do have 2 females in the crew, and they're both really cool people.
Yeah, they're awesome. Yeah. But yeah, luck's got a lot to do with it. I definitely lucked out. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
You're doing this obviously to make a living and be able to pay your bills and stuff, but your real love is to play and to perform on your own. You told me before we started recording this that Sketchy Becky is really it's kind of like a Steely Dan kind of thing in its configuration, where it's really just 2 guys and you're singing, songwriting, playing all the instruments along with the other guy in the band. And who's the other person in Sketchy Becky?
The other guy is John Velasco, and he sings, he plays guitar, and he does a lot of the writing too. He's my writing partner in that duo. Yeah, we don't play a lot of live shows or anything like that, but since we live together, we're just always in the home studio writing and collaborating and putting together recordings. And it's fun, man. That's the passion project, I suppose people would call it.
Can you describe the kind of music that you guys do?
Yeah, well, he's got a big reggae influence, and I got a big blues, classic rock influence. So I guess it would be a fusion between those 3 genres, I would describe it as.
Okay. And like I told you before, you're going to bring me some recordings, and we'll throw some in here somewhere in amongst this interview. I don't know where I'll put it yet, but when I hear it, I'll know where to put it.
All right, yeah,
so
definitely.
So get you a little promo on this podcast episode.
Cool.
And then you play with another band called Band, Banned, from Japan. You play drums in that band, and you guys work actually, right?
Yeah, that band. There's a lot of focus and drive with that project, mainly because the singer, songwriter, leader of the band, Matthew Earl, he's doing a really good job with that. And we play shows. We try to play shows as frequently as possible, in the Valley, Los Angeles. That's a fun project because what I like doing is playing drums. So that's what I'm actually doing, and playing live is even funner than playing just recording things at home or just playing yourself in the studio or a basement or something like that.
Of course, yeah. You get all the chicks, man, right?
Well, yeah, you do it for the girls. But it's cool. The most we've ever played for is maybe a couple hundred people, in one place. When a lot of the kids are singing the songs and know the words, it's like, oh shit, this is it's crazy. It's awesome. It makes you feel like a little kid or something,
And you guys have done some recording too, right?
Yeah, we've recorded one full album that I actually mixed, and then we put it on iTunes and Spotify and stuff like that. That's been out for about a year, I think. It's called Moist Muffin.
Nice.
Yes. Yeah, that's band from Japan. Most people would call it punk rock. I guess I would umbrella it under punk rock.
Uh-huh. Okay. Yeah.
But the singer...
And you just play drums in that band, right?
Yeah, just play drums.
But you're also recorded and mixed that band, too.
Yeah, actually, I think on the album, me and the singer split the bass guitar parts. So some of the tracks I play bass guitar on as well. But for all live shows, we have a bass player now, which is my writing partner in the other band.
Oh, okay.
So we're kind of like married together here with two different projects.
Right. You guys must get along pretty well then.
Yeah, we're real good friends, definitely.
That's cool. And you play piano and guitar and bass and drums. So
yeah,
that's quite a lot of talent there. You talked about playing drums when you were real young with your dad. Your dad bought a kit. Now, how did you learn how to play the piano and guitar?
That came later. I was probably 17 or so when I caught interest in playing these other instruments, because my friends in high school would always have friends playing guitar and piano stuff, and they had great ears. Like, they would listen to songs and they could automatically know what key they're in, and they just find the place on the neck or the keyboard and start playing to it. And for me as a drummer, I could never do that. I'm more so like I could pick up patterns,
right,
stuff like that. I was just always kind of jealous of that talent, so I'd start picking it up. I think I looked up tabs for guitar and then started watching videos on YouTube and watching other people, especially with piano. I just watch tutorial videos like, this is how you play easy like Sunday morning, and they'd show a guy in his fingers, and it was just kind of like monkey see, monkey do. And I practiced that every day, and it all just became muscle memory. And then maybe, I don't know, after a few years of that, my ear got better at picking up songs. Like, I can listen to the radio and, pick up the guitar and know what key I'm in and automatically start playing to the tune.
That's cool. I'd be jealous of that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I was a drummer and I had the same thing, and I messed around with the guitar and the piano and stuff, but it never really clicked for me. But I'm glad that it did for you.
Well, I still have to work at it. I'm still, I could pick it up pretty nicely, but some people are like, that must have come natural, and I'm like, no, this, I had to work at this stuff, man. Especially playing these other instruments, because like I said, all I had was drums. I was just banging on things, and like learning these patterns. Nobody, I didn't know how to. I didn't know scales. I didn't know chords or melodies or like notes or belong in which key. Like things like that. I wasn't paying attention to things like that.
So you taught yourself all this stuff really basically from the internet then?
And in books, yeah. Books were a thing still.
So you never took any actual lessons with anybody or didn't learn it in any kind of college situation?
No, it was all kind of just personal interest, just being in my room and spending time by myself with the guitar or piano or whatever. But I took a few lessons playing drums when I was like 12 or 13, but those didn't work out. They weren't really like teaching me anything new that my dad couldn't teach me. And after like the second or third one, I was telling the drum teacher, I already can do this. Can we skip ahead in this book? And they wouldn't do it. And I told my dad they were wasting his money, because he wasn't listening to me. So he just pulled me out. Drumline and all these classes I took in high school, like concert band and jazz band, really taught me timing and just technique and everything, kind of like catapulted me into how I play now, and like just finding like where I fit in music wise. And I think drums is like, that's my thing. I feel most
right. That's your main instrument and what you feel most comfortable doing.
Yeah. I'm sure like real guitar players and piano players could pick up, like if they see me play other instruments, they probably could tell like my technique's probably not, true technique to where how you're supposed to play, but I just feel like I'm a drummer playing other instruments. I just so happen to pick up other instruments,
Right, but that's really good though, because I'm sure that when you and the bands that you work with, if you're in a recording situation, that really helps in that situation, right?
Yeah, and especially after going to school, audio engineering school, they really teach you how to pick apart songs. Before I would really focus on drums, like listening to Led Zeppelin, all I could hear was Bonham's drums. It didn't matter what Jimmy Page was playing or what Robert Plant was singing. Like, all I heard was drums. But after going to school and listening to all these mixes, and then like, you're training your ear to hear low frequencies and you're mixing things and placing things, I could like pick apart the bass lines in all these songs, or just hear the drums, or hear the vocal melodies or the guitar melodies. And that it didn't ruin my music experience, but it definitely changed it quite a bit when I listen to any type of music. I'm always like picking it apart.
Yeah, right.
And And then that, you know, I just kind of dug into songwriting the last 4 or 5 years. And that's like a totally different animal. Like you're trying to make everything work together, you know, as a whole, not just like focusing on your drum patterns or like where you're going to put these fills. Your drums got to work well in the rhythm section with the bass lines, but they can't fight, you know, the guitar melodies. The guitar melodies can't fight the vocal melodies, and all this shit. It's just, and that stuff is very interesting to me now.
Right. So when you write a song, are you usually collaborating, or do you do it by yourself sometimes?
It's like half and half. I do a lot of writing to myself, especially on the road. We've been on the road. I've written like a few that I'll work out back home, but when my roommate is in town, because he tours as well, we'll write together and we'll get stuff done. It's half and half, because sometimes I feel like I don't got shit to talk about, you know, or write. Like there's nothing, even if I try, nothing's going to come out. Then some days I get to a hotel room or something, and after having a conversation with someone or something, I don't know, hearing music that brings me back, it'll just come out, you know, these verses and stuff, and then it works, you know, song's born, and it's like.
So when you're on the road and you're writing, you have a guitar? You carry a guitar with you?
I have an acoustic guitar, yeah.
Okay, so you keep that with you. So that's how you write, is on the acoustic guitar then?
Yeah, that's how I've been writing. When I'm home, I'll use piano and stuff, but guitar is probably the main go-to instrument when I write.
Okay. Do you come up with, is there a pattern? Is there something that works for you? Do you usually come up with maybe a rhythm first, or you come up with a melody, or you come up with a lyric, or what comes first in that situation?
Most of the time, the chords and rhythm will come first, because I'm always just kind of fiddling on the guitar. So I'll think of, it could be like a 3-chord progression, a 4-chord progression, or like a 12-bar blues. I really like the blues, so I like the 6/8 time. It doesn't always have to be like a 4/4 time, but whatever rhythm's like running through my head, I'll apply it to the guitar in a chord progression that I could sing in, you know, and then I'll come up with words. Very rarely I will write a song lyrically and then pick the chord progression. Really, because with the guitar and piano, you can like express how you're feeling without even singing. You know, you can just kind of pick your chords, and that's very expressive in itself.
Hence, instrumental music. Yeah.
Right. So that kind of like captivates my interest, because drums, you can't really do that. You can play a drum solo and stuff, and only like really like drummers will get off on that. Other people will be like, quit, you know, knock that shit off, you know, keep it down.
Let's move on now.
Yeah.
It's time to go get a beer.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, you can play like Mozart and shit like that, and it's like, you can feel it, you know, there's emotion there, and you can project how you're feeling onto other people just by playing. So that's how it kind of starts with me, whether it's on guitar or piano.
Uh-huh.
And then the words, you know, the words will come after that. Yeah.
Okay. So your influences then, when you first started getting interested in music, were you listening to like your dad's favorite music, that kind of thing?
Yeah, definitely. Mom and dad's. My dad loved Led Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Aerosmith, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple,
all the
Who.
classic rock.
Yeah. And then from my mom, she loved James Brown, Tina Turner, Michael Jackson.
She was more the soulful one.
Yeah, Motown, all that stuff, Aretha Franklin and stuff like that. So I got it from both ends, I feel like, and I was into.
It's a good mix.
Yeah, I was into both worlds. I loved all that stuff. And then I would just kind of put on those songs and try to play to them on the drums. And that's how I'd be like in my room, you know, picturing I'm playing for like 50,000 people, you know, to whatever Led Zeppelin or Pink Floyd, and have my headphones on, cranking it. And my mom was really good about that, because in middle school, high school, I started really taking it seriously. So I'd come home from school, and for like 2.5 hours, she would just say, yeah, go ahead and go practice and do your thing. And she'd sit out by the pool or whatever, and she enjoyed it, and the neighbors never minded and all that. So, but you were lucky. Yeah. It was definitely, music was promoted in the household. They knew I liked doing it, and it kept me out of trouble, where a lot of my friends were I guess, kind of getting into trouble, I would just come home and do the music thing. So they enjoyed that. My dad really liked me taking on the drums, like, because that's what he enjoyed doing. You know, we bonded over that quite strongly.
What was that first drum kit? What kind was it?
It was a CB 700, I believe.
Never heard of that one.
It's a kind of a cheesy drum set, you know, a beginner's drum set. I suppose he bought it because he didn't know if we were going to take to it or not. You know, we were 5-6 years old. It was like,
yeah, right.
You don't know. And then I think we got like a Gretsch kit, like a Blackhawk kit or something like that. And then shortly after that, before we moved to Florida, when I was 10 years old, he bought a Tama Rockstar. And that's actually the kit that I play now in Los Angeles. And I'll probably never sell that kit, only because of sentimental reasons. And he also, when I was in high school, we had this band teacher. He let me take home this Ludwig kit, this like 1982 Ludwig kit. And it had a Superphonic snare drum with it. And he goes, yeah, take it home, practice, whatever. A few months went by, and he resigned. He quit. And nobody asked for this drum set back. So I just kind of was in like limbo. I was gonna see what would happen with the new teacher, and the teacher was doing inventory, and they never did inventory before, so they had no record of this drum set. Nobody knew where this drum set, if it existed or where it went. So I just ended up hanging on to it. So I'm incriminating myself, I guess, right now. Yeah. I just realized this.
Drum set stealer.
Well, you know, I borrowed it and never returned it.
Right.
But my dad loved it, so we traded drum. He gave me the Tama set. And he gave me these Zildjian custom cymbals that he bought in like '98 that I play now, and I've never cleaned them. Like they would look pretty dirty to somebody, but they sound so good. And I feel like, you know, if I do clean them, it's gonna change the tone a little bit.
Yeah.
But I use them for everything, every kind of, like, if we're doing blues tunes or punk rock or whatever, they just fit in any situation. So he's playing that Ludwig kit right now, and I have the kit he bought in '98, like out of Boston, with the cymbals and stuff, and that's my gig kit. I love it. It's decent.
Yeah,
it's a nice kit.
Yeah, well, it's all about the tuning, right?
Yeah,
yeah. If you're good at tuning the drums, you can. I mean, unless there's something really wrong with the kit, you know.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been dented or chipped or anything like that.
Nice.
So yeah, she's in good condition.
All right, that's cool. So now, out of that music, so how do you feel? So you grew up really listening to classic rock, blues, and soulful music. What kind of music do you tend to like today? Not necessarily about your own music, but just if you were going to go back to your room right now and listen to something. What do you like?
Well, I'll give you an example. I just bought the Muscle Shoals recordings the other day, you know, from like the 70s and stuff. I rarely listen to new music that's out on the radio now. 1 out of a dozen might catch my ear, but it doesn't really catch my interest as a whole. I really just like music from. I enjoy stuff out of the 90s, and I enjoy everything from the 50s, 60s, and 70s. Some of the 80s I do enjoy, but there's a lot of electronic stuff that just doesn't do it for me.
Right. They were using a lot of drum machines back in that time.
Yeah, and the
that might be putting you off too.
Some of the synths and stuff like that. But, you know, like there's like Genesis and Michael Jackson and stuff from the 80s that I enjoy. I really do like the music. But if I don't know, I'm kind of all over the place. Like Frank Zappa is one of my biggest influences, and you can't really define his career with one song. Like every song's different, every album's different. Although he does have, you know, similar like horn melodies and things that he sticks to, which is like his writing style, where you could, you know, you hear the song and you could tell like, oh yeah, that's Frank Zappa's band. He's very progressive in his writing, as like the Beatles were, I would say.
Yeah, very complicated stuff.
Yeah.
Most musicians that I've talked to say that, you know, in order to play in that band, you really had to be good.
You had to know your shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and Frank wasn't going to be putting up with any of it.
Yeah. And, he was a big... all through high school, that's all I ever listened to. I couldn't tell you what was on the radio from 2006 to 2009. All I did was I downloaded Frank Zappa music from the internet, burned CDs, and I would just listen to Frank Zappa, you know, in my car, in my room. My dad, I think, told me about him one day, and I think he showed me the song Muffin Man, which is like a, he's got a little bit of singing, but then most of it's a guitar solo, rock guitar solo. And I was like, this is awesome. But he told me to check out other things because that's the only song like that you'll hear. Like all the other songs sound different. And then that just kind of opened my mind, as a singer-songwriter. He wrote all this music for everybody other than the improv and the solos. He wrote the drum parts, and he wrote the horn lines, and he wrote the guitar parts. And he was a high school dropout. He didn't go to college for this. Nobody taught him. He just took it upon himself because that's what caught his interest, and he cared that much about it that he taught himself to do all this, and he was amazing at it. I think he's the only guy inducted into the Jazz Hall of Fame and the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at the same time.
No, I didn't know that. Yeah, well, he most certainly deserves it. Pretty talented guy. It's kind of amazing when you think about how there's musicians out there who are highly educated musicians that went all through like Berkeley or some major
performing school,
and they're great and they're wonderful and come out, been great songwriters and singers and everything. And then there's other people who have no education whatsoever, and they're equally as great or sometimes better.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing. I guess what works for one person doesn't necessarily work for everybody.
Yeah, I feel like, and, there is a lot of graduates that go to performance schools and even schools like Scott and mine that we graduated from, some of them don't even do anything after that. They just kind of like resort back to, I don't know, whatever they were doing before. You don't hear about them.
Yeah.
Or hear that they're doing anything.
Well, maybe, when you start to learn something, maybe they figured out that, hey, this really isn't for me. It's not really what I thought it was going to be.
And that, I really do believe in that because, like you said, it really has to, like, catch your interest and have your heart, and you really have to be focused on it, whether you're going to go to school, you're just going to go straight for whatever you're going for, or you do go to school and that's what you're into, and it just catapults you even more into what you want to do. But yeah, I think if you want to do something, you're going to do it. If you enjoy doing it, that's what you strive for, If it doesn't catch your interest, like some classes in high school, like science class and math class, dude, I did not catch my interest, no matter how like cool the teacher was or how it wasn't easy for me, and I hated it, and I wasn't going to do the work because I wasn't interested. But music class, I was always like front row center. I was always paying attention, and I always looked forward to the music classes more than anything. So I knew, I had to do something in music. I did drafting and I was good at it. I thought I was going to get into architecture, and I took it for 3 years, and they offered me a 75% paid scholarship to a Florida university. And I was like, yeah, okay, I could take this scholarship and go to university, but anything that these schools were offering music-wise, you would just get a degree in teaching or something like that. There was no performing side or no recording audio, none of this. And I just didn't want to be a teacher. I think teachers are great. Everybody should respect them and honor them because they're doing a great job. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to like go to work and perform or make records and stuff like this. So I told them, thank you, but no thank you. I'm going to go to Arizona. And they were looking at me like, you have a 75% paid scholarship to a university. And I had a good GPO. I think I had graduated with like a 3.2 GPA. And I was like, yeah, but it's not what I want to do. Like I know this. And they're like, you better be sure that you know this because right. The music industry is not always the best option. And I was like, yeah,
true.
Okay,
yeah.
But that's what I did. I worked full time for like a year after I graduated high school, saved up like $10,000. My parents put their Harley Davidson like through the bank for a loan, and I matched that. And I got my school loan and went to Arizona. And I just did the thing, man. I got a part-time job, and I met people, and I paid attention, and they shoved all this information down your throat in 9 months. And then I did my internship, and I moved to LA, and it kind of just snowballed after that. And things kind of, although there's rough patches and speed bumps here and there, things have worked out so far. It's only been 7 years, but right now I wouldn't rather be anywhere else. This is awesome.
Yeah. Well, The way I see it is, if you're the kind of person, like when you're growing up, you're still in school, and you want to be in the music business, it really doesn't matter. Anybody could tell you, you can't do that. That's going to be horrible. No matter what they tell you, you're still going to go and do it.
Right.
Those are the kind of people who actually succeed in this business. If you're kind of wishy-washy, you're not going to make it, because, first of all, the work is unpredictable, and you don't know. Like we're going to finish up this in another 2 weeks, and then what? You don't always know where your next month's money's going to come from.
Yeah,
and so that's something that isn't for everybody. Not everybody is okay with that,
right?
And then traveling, if you're the kind of person that doesn't like to travel, well, that's not going to work. And then if you're in a relationship with a spouse, if they're not okay with it, then that's not going to work either. So, you have to really be dedicated to doing this no matter what the consequences are, and you just have to keep hanging in there, right?
Yeah, you definitely do, because it is more of a lifestyle than it is a job, But, yeah, if you really want to do it, and that's because, if you're doing it just to amuse other people or get the acceptance of someone, you got to do it because you want to do it and you love it, because there are going to be highs and lows, and shit's not always going to work out, but you gotta stay focused and positive. And I feel like if you're consistent and you keep at it, things will work out. They come back around, things turn around, and it's
you
feast
don't
or
always
famine.
end up doing what you think you were going to do either, right?
Right. No, things don't, and that's a big part of it. Things do not work out the way you think they're going to work out, no matter
Like I'm sure
what.
when you were going to school, you didn't know that you were going to become, to have this position with the Chris Isaak Band.
No.
You had no idea. You thought maybe something else was going to happen.
In my
this
mind,
just happened.
Yeah, in my mind, I thought I was going to come out of school and go to a recording studio and get a job as an assistant engineer and find a mentor that's going to teach me how to make records, and get my hands on an SSL or whatever they got and really like get at it. That shit went down the drain first year after 2 years after I graduated.
You found out that the recording business isn't all it's cracked up to be anymore.
No, yeah. And then the touring thing started, and that snowballed, and then that's when I realized this, for me, this is where it's at, touring and being on the road and being involved in the live music. That's where it's at. Yeah. I feel.
And hopefully someday you'll get a chance to be the one out there making the jokes and singing the songs, right?
I feel like, I feel like this job, this lifestyle is so intertwined with, me wanting like the performing side and the tech side, that it's bound to collide for me one day. I feel like as long as music is involved in my life somehow, I'll be happy,
Well, doing what you're doing, of course, it's not your end goal, but making relationships with professionals in the business, you can't. That is just, that's priceless.
Yeah, that's the most important.
You're hanging out with Scott Plunkett, and you're hanging out with all these great musicians in Chris's band and the musicians that were in the other band that you were on the road with.
Yeah,
those relationships, sometimes 20 years from now, it can be a big deal for you.
Right.
Or 5 years from now, or a month from now, it can be a big deal.
Yeah,
I got my gig in this band doing front of house for Chris Isaak because of my relationship with Scott, which is from like 30 years ago, working with Michael McDonald.
See, that's crazy.
But we kept in touch with each other over the years.
Right.
And so relationships that you make are gold. Mm-hmm. There's nothing more valuable in this business than having relationships with other people in the business. Yeah,
and I've learned that too. They really press that in schools, networking. And networking is one thing, but taking it to a relationship level is another, becoming friends with somebody and actually getting along and having common interests. That's what kind of gets people to go, oh, Ross is a great guy. He's friendly, easy to work with, but he's also a great front of house guy on top of that. So that's just a plus, because no matter what we're doing, we're all human beings. You know what I mean? We have to get along and be pleasant to be around. Otherwise, we're not even going to get close to doing the job. I could be the best stage tech probably there ever was, but if I'm a dick, nobody's going to want to work with me. You know, that's not
exactly
gonna, it's
true.
not going to
Yeah.
last.
Right. Yeah. When a guy like Doug Casper calls you about a gig, he's calling you not only to find out if you're capable of doing the job technically,
Right.
but he's calling you. He's trying to get a vibe from you to find out if you're going to be pleasant to be around on the road. Because you know, you could take where there's 10 people on our bus. If we have one person that's a real asshole,
It could disrupt
it can disrupt the entire thing, and then you're going to have a lot of unhappy people, and then maybe you'll have somebody quit that's really good at their job, and they're a good person, but they just don't want to deal with that shit.
They can't. Yeah.
So it is really super important that you're able to get along with people, that you're able to handle the rigors of being on the road. It's some parts of it are really fun and cool, and some parts of it are, you know, like getting here at 5 o'clock this morning and having to get off the bus, and drag your stuff into your hotel room. You know, it sounds petty to some people, but you know,
well, it's not all glitz and glam.
Yeah, some days are really tough for us, and some days are super easy and fun and just great. You know,
Yeah.
you got to be able to accept everything, right?
You definitely do. Yeah, the highs and the lows, man. It's you got to take it as it is.
So, like with this job, so all the people in the band you've gotten to know. So there's 6 of them right there, and then the entire crew of 10. You've made friends with everybody, and Doug, and even Chris's manager. Cheryl.
Yeah,
you know,
Cheryl's cool.
so she knows that you're capable. Now she manages a bunch of other bands. If one of the other bands that she is representing needs somebody to do something, well, maybe you'll get the call.
Yeah, that'd be great.
You know, so relationships are huge.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, man. It's not about what you know, but who you know. Definitely weighs a lot in.
Well, one of the things that I've noticed about you, and I'm sure other guys, us more elderly statesmen, have noticed that you didn't come into this gig and think, oh, I know everything. You know, and because you don't.
No way.
I mean, neither do we. We don't know everything either, but we'll certainly have more experience than, we have, decades of experience on you. So we know stuff. But when you come in and you're willing to learn, and you'll ask questions, and, you're willing to help out and do whatever it takes to get the job done, that's really important, because then now you've got like 20 people now that would be glad to recommend you for another gig.
Yeah. That's, I was raised, my parents were always telling me, if you keep your mouth shut, you might learn something, basically.
Very true.
And they meant that in the best way, you know what I mean? They weren't mean or anything about it, but I always go into any job or situation that I'm in, basically with the mindset of, I don't know shit. Because people pick up bad habits, and they get molded through a job a little differently, where at other camps they want you to do things quite differently than you did them last. So I just focus and pay attention to whoever's trying to teach me things, and actually listen and absorb this information. And I feel like that's worked out for me so far. Like I have learned quite a bit, and I'm only I'm a young gun compared to all you guys, and I know I'll learn a thing or two from you guys. So I try to pay attention and focus and pick up a few things, because that's only going to help me down the road,
Sure will. Yeah, no, I think you're going to be very successful. Who knows where you'll end up? Maybe you'll end up being a tech your whole life, or you may, end up being a big rock star. We don't know.
Yeah.
But one way or the other, you're going to do all right. You're always going to work, because you're willing to do whatever it takes to make a living. And
yeah, man, I'm a working man.
Yeah, you are. So from what I understand, because, I interviewed Scott, stage manager Scott, on this podcast, and he went to that school too, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences, and it seems like that's a pretty good school, because both of you guys are very, very good at fitting in and doing your job, and you're both young.
Yeah, I mean, I learned quite a bit there. I went in just only knowing this certain recording software that I bought from Best Buy, I didn't know really anything about mixing or compression or just very little, about EQing. And they taught us all this stuff and learned how to use Pro Tools and Logic. And got my hands on like a Neotech API and a SSL, I think they had. And it was awesome. Although that stuff doesn't really apply to my job now, it was definitely something I have under my belt that I use at home every day that I'm not working. I'm mixing, I'm recording, and I'm trying to work on that and become better at doing that too, because that's an art in itself. Like what you do, that's a whole art in itself, is mixing.
Yeah. And not everybody's a mixer, but not everybody's a musician.
That's right. Yeah. Last year I held a job running sound at a dive bar in North Hollywood. All I had to work with was a analog, like Yamaha 8-channel mixer with no effects, only a 3-band EQ with highs, mids, and lows. So I did that for like 6 months, but it was such a stressful job because this neighbor like hated the establishment and the cops were called all the time on the live music. So I had to quit because it just stressed me out. I became like the sound Nazi rather than the sound guy. I was like kicking people out and telling people to keep it down when they weren't even being that loud.
Oh, wow.
But that was awesome because that was the first job I had running sound, like getting my hands on a board and doing live situations like that after I graduated. And that came like six years after, What sucked was it wasn't the best. It wasn't like the ideal situation that you think you would be in running sound at a bar. It was like the worst situation you could get yourself into.
But maybe that's a good lesson, though.
You know, and it was. I got there, and connectors, wires were hanging out of the walls. They needed all new shit. So I spent like 2 days resoldering new connectors and fixing their stuff and rewiring shit. And they were thankful for it, and it made my job easier because shit worked.
I heard a rumor that you also fixed the sink there, too, right?
That was at NRG. Oh. That was at the recording studio when I first moved to LA. Yeah. The only reason why I knew how to do that is because my dad's a plumber, so I would go on side jobs with him all the time. And that's how I landed the job as a runner at the recording studio, because the owner saw me do it. And then he called me a genius, and I was like, no, man, it doesn't take a genius to fix a faucet.
No, but you had the initiative to go and do it. Nobody asked you to do it, right?
Nobody asked me, but I mean, there was
that means a lot to an employer.
Yeah, it was like the brand new faucet was sitting in the garage for like 2 weeks, and they had this hole, and they were just duct taping it, and then it would explode every once in a while and go all over the place. I was like, why is nobody doing anything about this? Nobody even called the plumber, so I was like, my dad's a plumber, I could do this shit, And I did it, and yeah, it was easy. But
that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, those experiences. So you're in this horrible club mixing on this terrible console. So then when you get on a real console that's much better, you can appreciate it. You go, oh, wow, I can do a lot more on this, right?
Yeah, definitely. You definitely appreciate it. I worked for a production company where I got my hands on an X32 a couple of times, but not at any gigs, just in their warehouse and just hooking things up and trying to go through it and basically learn how to use it. But since then, man, I haven't, other than working on the interface in Pro Tools or Logic, I haven't touched an actual digital board or anything like that since then. And it's a bummer because that's what I set out to do. But the audio industry is it all intertwines with each other. So what I'm doing now with like the wireless setups for the, guitars and stuff, you pick up things in school that I apply to that, and Scotty's setup with his main stage Logic program, his Apple program, and he runs all his patches through there, and he comes out of 2 Motu interfaces into house.
And Scott really knows that stuff. So if you have a question, Scott can answer it and teach you a lot. Yeah,
that's what surprised me too. Is I'm not calling Scott old any means, but with his age and his software, his technology experience, really surprised me because he knows his shit. He really does.
Well, he's kept up on it ever since that stuff started. I mean, that's when I was working with Scott, when all that stuff was just starting out. I mean, I was around when, the first digital keyboards came out, DX7.
Yeah.
And Scott was working with me at that time, and Scott dove into that huge, and he's never left it. So of course he's kept up with all the changes as they've come.
Yeah, he's on top of it for sure, man. That was a surprise to me.
Yeah, he's really good and a great guy. So
yeah.
All right. What else you want to tell us about? You want to say anything about? Because I'm definitely going to be putting in some music here, either from Sketchy Becky or from your solo project. I don't know where I'll put it, but we'll stick it in here somewhere, probably at the beginning and the end. Yeah. Anything you want to say about any of those projects, or?
Yeah, they're just, passion projects, things that I record just because I enjoy recording and writing. Maybe one day we'll get a full band to play these songs out. But for the meantime, me and my roommate, I plan on playing some acoustic sets at, singer-songwriter nights or something out in L.A. You can catch me out in L.A. playing locally. That's what I really like doing. So.
Hey, you keep up a Facebook page, right?
Well, I'm not on Facebook currently because I got hacked.
Oh yeah, that's right. You did. Yeah.
Last month or a month before, so I've got
logged
out.
Your account?
It closed for me, and then I got logged out. I'm kind of locked out right now, and don't know my password to go back in. So, and the problem with that is someone created my Facebook for me with a personal email. So they can't even send the password to the email because it's not my email. It's somebody's personal email.
You got to start over again.
I got to start all over again. But you know what? My life's been pretty good without Facebook because it's, I used to spend hours in the morning just fucking looking at my phone, lying in bed, worrying about what other people are saying or what people are posting. And I feel like I've grabbed a hold of my life this past month, not having Facebook on my phone.
Yeah, well, it does grip some people and take time away. Yeah. On the other hand, it's a great way to keep your name out there and let people know what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true.
And promote your projects.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be Facebook, but with some kind of social media, because that's kind of the way the world works now.
Yeah, I'll probably come crawling back. In a month or two. We'll see.
I mean, I use Facebook mostly for the reason of promoting this podcast a lot and just letting people know, hey, I'm still out there working and I'm available for stuff.
It's a good networking platform. For
it definitely is. Yeah. The hard part is resisting all the reading all the crap.
Yeah, I know, man.
It's kind of can suck you in.
It does.
Yeah. All right. Well, Joe, it's been a real pleasure getting to know you on the road, having dinner with you, and you always get your job done. I mean, everything is always perfect on that side of the stage. So, congratulations on being a success story out of, one of these schools, because I'm sure that, it's probably a small percentage of guys that actually leave any of those schools and actually work in this business.
Yeah, well, I'm thankful. I'm thankful for where I am and ended up in this camp, and everybody here is awesome and friendly, and you're a hell of a guy, man. I enjoy working and living with you and eating sushi, and I got nothing but good things to say about this camp. I really lucked out, and I'm glad to be here.
Great. Okay, Joe. Well, thanks for coming over to my room, and we'll see you again. Maybe if this podcast is successful and keeps going, revisit you in a few years and see how things are going.
Right on.
All right, man.
Good.
You take care now, Joe.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right, later.
We are currently looking for sponsors for the Rossaround Backstage podcast so that we can continue to bring you interesting stories like the one you just heard. I can be reached through Facebook or email me at rosspallone.com. Thank you for listening.